History of editing. Film editing, by definition, is the art, technique, and practice of assembling shots into a coherent sequence. Before the act of cutting, a director would simply keep filming until the film ran out, and then put a new reel in, and so on. This is something that the Lumiere brothers did. As being the very first pioneers of cinema, there were no tricks or techniques used since no one had thought of such things yet. Film only consisted of day-to-day life, recording people at work, like a motion landscape painting. In fact, the most interesting editing technique of a time was to reverse the film and turn back time, supposedly. The first form of editing to exist in film was to start and stop the recording. The first person to utilize this technique was Georges Muir in his film Le Voyage dans la Lune, or A Trip to the Moon as it is translated in English. Muir would stop his film at a certain part and then take away or add an object into the scene. He would then play a new reel and then edit the previous one to the latest one, making it seem like an item has appeared or disappeared. All of the shots in A Trip to the Moon are several minutes long, uncut, showing cinematography in its most primitive stage, with very few editing. The act of cutting in film was often used as a means of making illusions and magic tricks to surprise the audience. It was also used to make stage transitions less obvious, though it was still early days back then. An early editing technique was to cut with scissors and glue back together. This was very precise work and required a lot of patience. Women who wanted to work in the film industry primarily did this job, since they were not allowed to work in any creative parts of filmmaking. The next pioneer after Muir was Edwin S. Porter, who invented crosscutting, a technique that would prove to be invaluable today. Cross-cutting is when one shows two or more different scenes in the same sequence. Edwin S. Porter made the great train robbery after an earlier film named The Life of an American Fireman. In that, Porter used his cross-cutting technique and it amazed audiences. However, the transition was sloppy and it improved in the great train robbery. An actor named D.W. Griffith worked in one of Porter's films as an actor for being young and fairly handsome. However, Griffith wanted to work in the film industry for different reasons. He wanted to be a scriptwriter. After having many failings as being a novel writer and failing in writing stage plays, he sent a script to Porter, but unfortunately he rejected it, but hired Griffith as an actor regardless. Eventually, though, Griffith got the job he wanted as a director, producer, and writer. Griffith made many films, but his most famous film was A Birth of a Nation, which was well done, but extremely controversial. It's famous for having good editing techniques and being quite long for feature films of that day. However, its symbolism of the Ku Klux Klan and racism and the Confederates as in general did not make all audience very happy. Griffith developed Porter's editing technique significantly by editing new camera angles, positions, shots, and edits. In the Soviet Union, a man named Lev Kuleshov began to work in the film industry. He thought he could influence people by using certain editing techniques. He made a film where he shot a bowl of soup, a girl in a coffin, a beautiful woman, and a man looking at these things. The audience thought the man's acting was incredible, the way he looked hungry for the soup, sad for the girl, and so on. Though, what they didn't know was that the man was wearing the same expression for each shot, especially since he wasn't shot in the same position as the other objects. proving that careful editing itself can influence an audience. He called this the Kuleshov effect. Working alongside Kuleshov for a while, Sergei Eisenstein wanted to try his hand at cinematography as well. His first full-length feature film was Battleship Potemkin, which went down in history. During its creation, Eisenstein invented montage that would change cinema permanently. Eventually, an easier way of editing arrived. It was the moviola. The moviola was the first introduced in 1924, when Douglas Fairbanks, an actor, brought it for the first time for only a couple of $1,000s. This changed editing hugely, as editors could now view individual scenes of film through a slider. The moviola has also allowed film and sound to be placed together simultaneously. So what is the purpose of editing? For a start, it shortens the time of a film significantly. However, it can be so much more too. It can change our perspective of how we view film and the outside world alongside it. It can open imagination and create innovation for future directors, producers, and editors alike. Editing can excite, pace, disturb, or even scare an audience in every way. That is why editing is so important to us.